Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of F1 22 Driver Career Mode here on the channel. Hope you're all having a great day. It's Imola weekend with a sprint race, fresh off of a heartbreak in the Chinese Grand Prix where we were fighting Max Verstappen for our first Grand Prix victory until, well, he wrecked us. And we have breaking news from the Formula 1 scene as well. Max Verstappen handed 3 penalty points for that incident with myself. He is now up to 5 as he started the 2023 season with 2 of them as we were getting ready for this weekend of racing. But we had some comments from Zach Brown and Christian Horner about the incident.
It was a rare mistake from Max. We apologise to Gary, but it is what it is. Let's move on.
It looked like a lot more than just a mistake to me. He could have taken a driver out of the car for a few races with a move like that. Unacceptable.
Well, there you hear the reactions from the team bosses as we were underway in free practice 1, and it was pretty quick here now as we were in the wet conditions and we jumped straight through towards qualifying here. Do keep in mind we have the sprint race weekend, but it was also raining for qualifying as well in Imola. So we leave the wet China to a wet Imola now as it was certainly coming down. By the way, the fish helmet, I keep saying I got a modded helmet coming. I finally remembered to switch it over for the next Grand Prix, so we should have it in store for that one. But here in Q1, I immediately invalidated my lap time, so we had to go and make a second attempt here late in the session, but I struggled a lot in the wet conditions here in qualifying, and you were going to see it. We were currently 20th on the board, and I was just trying to find some time, but it was very difficult for me in these wet conditions here on the intermediate tires, and we had found a couple of tenths of a second. You can see some oversteer right there, but we come through the penultimate corner down towards the final turn, and everybody was on the inters at this point. It started on the wet tires actually for this session, but it's not even a half a second gain on this final attempt, and we cross the line. We go better, we improve our position, but it's not enough to even move on into Q2. P18 here in Imola, a pretty embarrassing qualifying effort there as Ricardo was P11. We have some work to do going into the sprint. Thankfully, we have the sprint to be able to get our position better for the actual Grand Prix, but roughest qualifying of the season for sure. Let's head to the grid for the sprint.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, just ahead of George Russell, who starts this event from P2. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Leclerc, Sainz, and Sir Lewis Hamilton, and Perez, Fernando Alonso, Ricciardo, Magnussen, and Mick Schumacher, Albon, Tsunoda, Lando Norris, and Joe, Stroll, Ocon, Robert Schwartzman, and Golden Boy, Gasly, and Nicholas Latifi. And with preparations almost complete, let's head trackside for today's sprint.
Ready to go green then. A medium compound tire strategy. Pretty straightforward here in the sprint, not much to it. Let's get ready to head to the grid. Lights out.
Here we go then, the formation lap is underway ahead of today's sprint. We're almost ready to start the sprint as the cars take their positions on the grid, with the drivers and teams making their final preparations.
Avoid any Red Bulls today, bud.
Okay, yes sir. Yep, let's have some fun. You hear myself on the radio to Zach Brown actually coming over the radio to tell us to avoid any Red Bulls today after what happened in China, and we're trying to move on from that ending there with Max Verstappen, and we start towards the back of the grid now. I forgot to actually change my engine parts. I had like 2 or 3 worn engine parts that needed changing that would affect our straight line speed. I forgot to change them for the sprint, and I forgot to change them for the Grand Prix, which is a weird story why I forgot to change them for the Grand Prix, which I'll explain when we get there. Now, as we're ready to go green, 5 red lights, and it's going to be lights out. We're underway in the Imola sprint. Max Verstappen, George Russell, as well as Charles Leclerc, your top 3. In the background, you see Hamilton's 3 wide, actually, with the Red Bull of Perez, Carlos Sainz, as well as we head down towards turn 1. Verstappen, a great start there. Leclerc side by side still with Russell in the background. Winglets go flying. Hamilton loses at what appears to be his right front winglet, and I believe believe Perez lost his left front as well, so they're both going to be in trouble already and having to come into the pit lane at the conclusion of this first and opening lap here. You see some side-by-side action all throughout the grid here. Now there is one of the Aston Martins there of Lando Norris up the inside of a Williams Porsche driver now, as the Williams Porsche team has had such a laughable start to their collaboration project here to start this season. You see Nicholas Latifi at the back. Here's the replay from Daniel Ricciardo's onboard. Watch this right in front of him. Hamilton, Sainz, Perez come together. Sainz is the only one that didn't get damage out of that. So Hamilton and Perez both into the pits at the end of the lap. They're going to put on another set of mediums and change their front wings. So this moves me up to P18. I gained no spots on the opening lap. Daniel Ricciardo actually goes off in turn one. He went completely off circuit after locking up. So a rough start for the day here for McLaren, as I was quickly putting the fight to Nicholas Latifi on the exit of the next hairpin. And here we go on the run up the elevation through the left-hander. I'm not going to give him a whole lot of room to work with. Fellow Canadian, though, surrenders the position. As you can see, the replay for Ricciardo, it was, just a simple mistake, a harmless mistake to the, fortunately, to the event there. No one else gets caught up in anything, but you can see myself now all over the back of Pierre Gasly, and we have a lot of things kicking off early in this Grand Prix because Gasly blows up. He's out of the Grand Prix. We have another yellow right here. It's the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Is he out of the Grand Prix as well? No, he was not. He actually goes for a spin is what happened on board. Replay here. Look at this. He just completely throttles up too much and around he goes, and he is going to have a lot of work to do as well. So three big names with issues from Sainz most recently, then Hamilton and Perez on the first turn of the first lap here. Now, as you can see, more issues in front of us on lap 4. I'm right behind Schwartzman. Ocon was actually having a mechanical failure. He's out of the Grand Prix as well, or out of the sprint, I should say. We're drag racing with the rookie of Schwartzman into the chicane side by side. I don't give him a lot of room to work with, kind of using up the rookie, using my season experience so far now as we come through to lap 5, and now we repeat 12. But look at this. Daniel Ricciardo, who had issues on lap 2, had passed everybody and had run me down. I had absolutely nothing for him. He had way more pace than myself, and on the front straightaway, that was going to show. He was going to blow right past on the left side. I was struggling with pace compared to Daniel. I thought our pace was pretty good, but once he was able to run me down like that and, well, just drive past me and drive away 2.4 seconds up the road, I was a little bit surprised, but you can see the engine icon comes on now. So some parts are worn. One of the parts actually reducing our straight line speed, so that was starting to make a little bit more sense. But that was really it for the sprint. Max Verstappen would come through fresh off of the win in China to cross the line to win the sprint race here in Imola over Leclerc and George Russell. And, well, Alonso fourth. I actually had a 3-second time penalty for extending track limits, but it didn't change anything, so we crossed the line. P13 for myself, P12 for Daniel Ricciardo, and, well, a bit of an unfortunate ending. I thought we were going to have a bit more pace in it, but it is what it is. I think we have a pretty good shot, though, going into the Grand Prix. Kevin Magnussen, driver of the day for the Haas F1 team there, and you see he finished 5th. A great day for him. Albon and the Williams Porsche getting their first points in the sprint, as well as that setting them up very well for the Grand Prix. We have a little bit of work to do, but we can make up a lot of ground on that first and opening lap if we play our cards right. But you see Verstappen a 22-point advantage now as we're going to head to the grid for the race.
Hello there and welcome back to Imola, home circuit of the Scuderia Ferrari. We expect to see a lot of local supporters wearing red today, and they've all turned out for what we're expecting will be a sensational event here at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. 3.1 miles of track at Imola featuring 19 turns, 9 to the right and 10 to the left. Remember that Imola differs from most other Formula One tracks as it's taken anti-clockwise. Let's hope nobody forgets that today. The exit from turn 18 will probably be the setup for many of today's overtakes, leading as it does into the longest straight on the circuit, and its only DRS zone. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And it's Charles Leclerc in P2. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Russell, Fernando Alonso, Kevin Magnussen and Mick Schumacher, Albon, Norris, Stroll and Guan Yu Zhou, Ricciardo, Golden Boy, Robert Schwartzman and Tsunoda, Perez, Latifi, and Sir Lewis Hamilton, and Carlos Sainz. Ocon, they've taken a grid penalty, and Pierre Gasly picks up the final grid slot. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. It's race day yet again, and joining me for a chat is Anthony Davidson. And our racers are certainly in for a rough day today. What will you be watching out for as they head into turn 1?
Well, the start of the race is always one of the most nerve-wracking parts. You have to hope that everyone is able to get off to a clean start, and this is possibly the trickiest part of the entire race. So many drivers in such a small space, and finding your braking point into turn 1 as well. It's a testament to the driver's skill that there aren't more incidents.
Ready to go racing then on a medium to hard compound tire strategy there, as you can see. We could do a 2-stop from softs to mediums to hards, but that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So just a 1-stop here as we're ready to go racing.
The formation lap gets underway, and every driver will be looking to settle in for the race ahead, making sure that their car is ready for the battle once the lights go out. We're almost ready to start the race as the cars take their positions on the grid, with the drivers and teams making their final preparations.
All right, team, we made up some good progress there in the sprint race, so I don't see why we can't do the same here today.
Keep the car in one piece. It could get wild into turn 1 again.
You hear Mark just giving us a little bit of turn 1 advice. So I forgot to swap out my engine parts for the Grand Prix, and simple reason was, in between the sprint race and the Grand Prix, I went to the bathroom and I came back, and just out of natural instinct, I loaded into the Grand Prix. I actually tried to force quit the game, but it was too late and we were already loaded in, so I couldn't swap the engine parts. So we're going to be down on straight line speed all Grand Prix long, but it's a new challenge. We're ready to go racing. We save a race potentially for grid penalties later in the season. It's lights out. Max Verstappen leads away on the long run towards turn 1. He's got the Ferrari and Mercedes right behind him of Leclerc and George Russell there side by side. Verstappen took off in the sprint, and it looks like he's already going to do the same when he has side by side battles behind him between Leclerc and Russell as well. You see Magnussen, Schumacher, Albon all up there in the top 10 as well. Great starts for them as we are trying to replicate what they're doing now. As you can see, Leclerc putting the fight to Russell, who takes a very defensive tactic, and look at you saw it there. Max Verstappen's already long gone, and Perez, he's moving his way forward as well. He is already up the inside of Daniel Ricciardo on this opening lap now. As myself, I'm drag racing up the circuit, up the elevation there. That's with Schwartzman as we go down through the left-hander as we continue on to take that position now. Lewis Hamilton not far behind. He is just behind myself, a few car lengths back. As you can see, Carlos Sainz trying to move his way forward as he of course had a rough sprint, and then you see another driver, Esteban Ocon, at the back of the grid right there with a rough sprint as well with that mechanical failure. Alpine has had a rough start to the season. They have a really quick car. They've proven that. They always have a really good running position between Alonso and Esteban Ocon, but they haven't been able to put finishes together due to either mistakes like Alonso with a spin in Bahrain, or as well as mechanical issues. There always seems to be something happening with the Alpine this season, which puts them a lot lower currently in the standings than you would expect. Lap 2, Perez runs wide into turn 1, and he goes from rebounding from his mistake on lap 1 of the sprint to going backwards once again here in the Grand Prix. So it's gone from bad to worse for this weekend for him now. As you can see, Ricciardo, I'm trying to follow in his footsteps there. He passes a fellow Canadian to Stroll. We pass him as well and move on up into the points now. So you can see Ricciardo, though, he was on the move like the sprint. He was up now to P8, passing Lando Norris 2.5 seconds up the road, and here I am trying to run him down as I have Lewis Hamilton breathing down my neck at this point on those soft tires. But fortunately his soft tires were starting to fade a little bit compared to these mediums, and we were now within the DRS of Lando Norris, so that made defending over Hamilton quite a bit easier. And here we are, lap 7, an easy opportunity to go to the right side and make the pass here on Lando Norris in that Aston Martin. Not even a contest there. We will pass him down into turn 1. Ricciardo 2 seconds up the road behind Alex Albon. He is trying to chase down down, and Ricciardo was only a few tenths of a second behind Albon at this point. But now I kept Lando in my DRS, so it was making it hard for Hamilton to pass Lando as well, so just putting a bit of a barrier between myself and those soft tires on that Mercedes and the 7-time world champion, who's had a very rough start to the season as well, and the sprint didn't help. But Hamilton would soon pit actually on lap 10 from the softs to the hard compound tires, so we will not see him or Perez in the pit lane again, as he was also just coming in to make his pit stop as well. Max Verstappen, you see on the track map, he was long gone in front of the Ferrari and the Mercedes now, as they were trailing and fighting each other and trying to run down Verstappen, but nobody has anything for Max Verstappen. Now Ocon as well actually had to pit for wing damage a little bit earlier in the Grand Prix, so he was way behind, so it's gone from bad to worse for him. Yellow flags up ahead in turn 1. It was Charles Leclerc who had actually ran wide in turn 1, which is such a common occurrence here in Imola in this game, and now he was holding up Schumacher and Ricciardo as they would always scrap it out, so that would close me right up to the back of these guys as our pit window was open. So we come into the box at the end of lap 15, just barely get it down to pit speed, but we come in to put on that hard compound tire. Easy pit stop there, solid pit stop from the team. We haven't had a pit stop error since I think Jeddah in season 1, so it's been over a full season since we have had a pit stop error in this game. I'm going to knock on wood to make sure we don't jinx it and that doesn't happen sometime soon here as we continue on. Lando Norris just behind myself, but we would be able to manage a gap to him. And as Daniel Ricciardo came out of the pit lane, he was 1.2 seconds in front of us. Yellow flags though, down into turn 1. It's Fernando Alonso, and the rough weekend for Alpine just got worse because their one driver that was running in the top 5 is out of the Grand Prix due to a mechanical failure. So Alonso out, our first retirement of the day, and we were just talking about Alpine and how rough of a start to the season they've had, even though they have a lot of speed, and it's being proven once again. You see behind me, Perez signs into the top 10. Lando Norris actually had contact with Perez and got some wing damage, so he had to make an extra pit stop here, as all of a sudden I'm in a battle with Schumacher as him and Ricciardo were scrapping it out. So former teammate Schumacher on my left side now, as we had contact with him in Jeddah in that last lap accident, but we were able to get out in front of Schumacher there, so taking P8, and I was hoping to make that move so I could keep him in my DRS, and that way Perez and Sainz wouldn't be able to pass me, and that's exactly what I would end up doing here. Ricciardo again driving away 2 seconds up the road, but you can see lap 25, a pretty calm Grand Prix. It's been, the sprint race was quite chaotic, but the Grand Prix has been pretty calm. But Kevin Magnussen is currently in third. Hamilton, on his own strategy on the softs to hards, has gotten all the way up into 4th place. He leapfrogged us massively. Leclerc in 5th. Albon in the Williams Porsche, who got their first points as that collaboration team project in the sprint, are on track to get a 6th place result here in the Grand Prix. Schumacher as well joining his teammate in the points. You see Zhou Guanyu, Pierre Gasly, Nicholas Latifi, Ocon, and Norris. The rest of the grid. Schwartzman as well actually had a mechanical failure a few laps prior to going into that replay mode there to get the late race update. So a couple of mechanical failures. Schwartzman has had a rough start to his rookie season as well. I mean, it doesn't help that he's on Alfa Romeo, you know, a team that seems to be really struggling right now in this career mode as we come through to the late portions of this Grand Prix. And Ricciardo was long gone up to P6, but I was running down Alex Albon. He was down to P7. We were getting closer and closer. 2 laps to go in this Grand Prix, 1.2 seconds a gap. Still got Schumacher in my DRS, which keeps Perez from being able to put the threat to him. We come through to start the final lap, and I had found pace. I was coming through to set my fastest lap of the Grand Prix by over right about half a second, actually 0.5 of a second quicker than my previous fastest lap. Last lap's underway. Turn 1, yellow flags. It's Lewis Hamilton, who was up to 4th place. He was in a battle with Leclerc and got ran off circuit, so he's going to maybe not even get points now. Another rough day for Lewis Hamilton. What was looking pretty good as it was going to be P11 for Lewis Hamilton because Sainz had gotten up into P10 past him as well, and Ricciardo's going to be 5th. Verstappen cruised to victory. I didn't quite have enough for Albon to get to him on the final lap. One more lap is all I needed. Right here we would have completed the pass on this straightaway for sure, but it's not enough. And even with the parts issues and the slower top end speed, we still managed a great result of P7 and a good rebound from what happened at the ending of the Chinese Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz, the Spaniard, driver of the day. Let's head to the podium celebrations for Max Verstappen.
Red Bull pulling out all the stops today. What a great win. Talk to me, Ant. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
I think that smart tyre management on track and very smooth driving definitely assisted in their victory today. That combination meant they got the absolute maximum out of their tyres at all times.
Well, Max Verstappen was kind of in a league of his own in this weekend. I mean, in the sprint, we saw, you know, second on back battling each other in the turn 1, and that allowed Verstappen to drive away immediately, and we saw the exact same thing replicated in the Grand Prix. They battled behind him in turn 1, and, well, he was long gone. Nobody could get a good of a launch as Verstappen to even put the fight to him in turn 1. So Max Verstappen, you know, after the tactics he used in China to take me out of the race and win himself, he was absolutely on it here this weekend, and nobody had anything for him. He's on his redemption arc. He wants redemption for how last season ended with that championship, of course, where he led the championship right up till the final couple of moments of the season, the final 2 Grand Prix, and then he lost it to Charles Leclerc. Magnussen, though, on the podium. I mean, we got to look at that. Absolutely fantastic to see Haas get their first podium in Formula 1 after all these years when they came into the sport in, what, 2016? So, long time in the making for sure. The standings, of course, we're going to see how that's been changed up. Ricardo is actually only 1 point behind me now. I have 20. He has 19. Verstappen nearly a 2 Grand Prix lead over Perez and Russell as well. You see Leclerc, Sainz, Magnussen, Alonso, Hamilton 8th in the standings currently, as you see the rest of it there. Take a quick look at the constructors. P6, Alpine in 5th with the cars that they have is quite surprising, but that's going to wrap it up for me. We're going to take off from the nearby airport, and I'll see you guys in the next one in Miami. Have a great day, everybody.